Today on Tree Talk, we were talking about Hackberry, Celtis occidentalis. Hackberry is a very common tree that is very broadly adaptable to a bunch of different soil types and an excellent wildlife tree. So let's get on into it. The first thing with Hackberry that sticks out, makes it very, very distinctive, is the bark. We have these corky ridges that'll build up over time. This is a quite large hackberry here. Hackberry generally is sort of a medium-sized tree. I don't see many that are this big. When the tree is younger, these warty, corky projections sort of look like little rock gym, plastic handholds, like artificial rocks in a rock gym. But yeah, as they get bigger, they kind of turn more into plates, but they're still very sort of warty looking. And that is going to just stick out to you, no matter the season, no matter where you are. Their leaves are a little less distinctive. They are, there we go, elliptical. They've got a bit of a good point on the end. And so one of the nicknames for this tree has many common names, is, there we go, that's a good, it's winter, so it's hard to get good leaves, is a nettle tree, because the leaves do kind of look like nettle. That sort of, the veins have a very strong net pattern. You can really see all the side veins pretty well. So we have serrated leaf edge. Again, it's kind of lanceolate-ish, it's pointy, longer, but these galls that we're seeing on it are super distinctive. Almost every single hackberry tree that I see has some sort of gall on it, either on the leaf tissue like this or on young stem tissue. And so what these are, galls can be a bunch of different, it's the plant's response to an infection. I think most of these galls on hackberry are insects. Wasps or other insects are laying their eggs inside that leaf or young stem tissue. And this is a response of the plant growing this protrusion, and that is where we would find the larvae of those insects. So I'm going to lay this down, and hopefully they'll hatch out and come out next year, because they don't really harm the tree. You see these a lot on oaks too. Galls are very, very common. They don't hurt the tree typically, and we want more bugs around for our ecosystem. Maybe one more thing I'll say about hackberry. So hackberry, they do have small berries that I very rarely see because they're always way up high in the tree. I think they're flowering around April or so, kind of mid-spring, and then those berries are ripening towards the fall. The young stems I find to be pretty distinctive, and the form I'd say is actually quite distinctive too. It has a very kind of spreading crown usually. When they're young, they kind of grow very crazy. The form is not very good, but almost always mature trees like this or smaller I see having very good straight form, and then the crown will really spread out when they're growing out in the open. But also the young stems they're very, very slender, very delicate looking, and they zigzag in between the buds. I think that's called sympodial branching form, but I'll correct that in the bottom if I'm wrong, or I'll verify, I guess, at the bottom. And there's also distinctive light round lenticels on those young stems. Okay, so onto kind of natural history. I mentioned how good this tree is for wildlife. It's very broadly adaptable. I think I mentioned that already too. So we are on a ridgetop soil now, very thin ridgetop soil. But for most of our hike we've been on today, we have seen tons of these in the floodplain. I more associate them with the floodplain, but I see them a lot in cities and really poor urban soils that don't have a lot of oxygen or organic matter in them. They're just very, very tolerant kind of any soil. They'll grow pretty fast, especially when they're out in the sun, but they're also very tolerant of shade. And they're also very tolerant of flooding. So they can handle pretty decent amount of flooding. I have seen very little damage to them from periodic flooding, and they're okay. So there's not a lot of trees that are great in dry soil, wet soil, flooded soil, and in the shade. Hackberry is one of them. So from a conservation perspective of me reforesting a lot of places, it's a very good, handy tool to have in my belt. Their range is pretty large. It's most of eastern forests, except kind of the deep south. There are some related species that are found down there. But kind of sort of, a little bit north of the deep south and east of the Mississippi, we find this tree pretty commonly. For human uses, not very excellent wood quality. It's very heavy but also soft at the same time. Not really a timber species at all. I think it's used for some kind of crates, that kind of stuff, pallets, things like that. It is used, but it's not really sought after. But again, the wildlife, it's a great tree because it produces all those berries that are food for a lot of organisms. We have a lot of insects that will eat the leaves and the other tissues, and that's supporting the rest of that forest ecosystem. And because it is a good native tree, that can be regenerating in the shade. Quickly on the note of regeneration and kind of the silviculture, I have not really seen it stump sprout very well when they're mature, but when they're young, I've seen them stump sprout very, very well. Another one of the nicknames or common names is beaverwood, and I think that I have seen beaver damage on hackberry quite a bit. I think they really enjoy how the inner bark tastes. So there you have it. Hackberry, Celtis occidentalis, lovely tree to see, and it's really nice because it stands out. So very easy to identify as well.